Every video on this channel starts as a raw tape of me talking into a microphone, and every one of them takes about an hour and 22 minutes to clean up before I can even start editing. I timed it to the millisecond because that's the kind of thing I do. An hour and 22 minutes of finding gaps, cutting breaths, and closing dead air. It's not creative work and no decisions are really made. It's just the same three motions about 100 times before the actual video begins. So the first job for Era 2 is the one I dislike the most, and I'm going to try and hand it to the machine. A quick recap if you're new. For the first era, I spent 12 rounds building scaffolding around a small local AI so it could build web pages, and then in round 12, I swapped the model for a larger one, ran one control test, and the whole thing came apart in about 39 seconds. And the scaffolding turned out to be hindering the larger model. So this era isn't a harness, it's a crew. A few small local tools with real jobs pointed at my own production line, one stage at a time. And we start with the voice cleanup first. And there's a rule I want to put down before we start because it decides everything that follows. If you're going to let the machine run in a loop by having it try something, check it, try again, then there's something that has to do the checking. And that something has to be cheap enough to run every single time without you sitting there watching. That's why AI coding tools took off first. Code comes with a free referee. It compiles or it doesn't. The tests pass or they don't. The machine can check its own work 1,000 times and nobody has to be in the room. Take that referee away and the whole loop stops being a loop. You get one pass and a shrug, or you get a machine going in circles being confidently wrong. So the real question for every job in this era isn't, can I automate this? It's really, is there something cheap that can tell me it worked? Here's how I cut the tape by hand, and it's fairly simple. It's find the flat line, delete the breath, then close about half the gap, then do it again 100 times more. So the first thing the tool has to know is what is about half, and I could have just hard coded a number, but the number is different depending on how tired, if I'm caffeinated, or whether I'm reading a tutorial or a saga episode. So instead, it measures me. Every run, it looks at all the tiny gaps between words inside a sentence. The ones that are just my natural rhythm, not deliberate pauses, and it works out the typical length. On my tapes, that's about a quarter of a second, 230 milliseconds on one recording, 240 on another, 210 on a third. Different days, different microphone position, but the same rhythm. Then every pause on the tape gets cut down to a multiple of that number, not a fixed length, but a multiple of me, which means if I record tired and slow, the target gets looser automatically. I didn't have to tell it that, it just measures the tape it's given. Now the hard part, and I want to walk through the failures because they're more useful than the successes. When I flub or screw up a line, I stop, and I say the sentence again. So the tape has the same phrase twice, and only the second one should survive. Easy, right? Find the duplicates, keep the later one. That's what I built first, and it was a total mess. Because I write things that repeat on purpose. That sentence is from a real script. It was very good, and it was very much not mine. The phrase it was very is in there twice, 2 words apart, on purpose. And my tool found the duplicate and deleted everything between them, which is the word good. So in version 2, don't compare the tape to itself, compare it to the script. I've got the script sitting right there. Every word I said either has a home or it doesn't. The ones that don't are where I messed up. That's the right idea. It's also where I made mistake number 2. There are 2 ways a word can fail to match. Either it has no home at all, that's a flub, or it has a home but looks different. Because the transcription heard me wrong. Whisper turned he into he, anatomy into onab, and my code treated both kinds the same, and deleted 13 seconds of perfectly good audio. And then mistake 3. After fixing all that, the model I had placed to find the flub started returning absolutely nothing, empty every time. It turns out that GPT Oz thinks before it answers. I told it not to show me the thinking, and it was putting the entire answer in the part I'd switch off. I was reading an empty envelope and concluding there was no mail. So here's where I landed, and it's not where I expected. I could keep grinding the flub detection, better prompts, bigger model, or more clever matching, but there's no cheap referee for it. Whether a repeat is a stumble or a deliberate echo isn't in the transcript, it's in my head, and it's in the sound of the take. So I stopped solving it in the software and solved it in the booth instead. Now, when I commit a mistake, I punch in, which is re recording straight over the mistake in the moment. If there's only ever one take, nothing to detect. The tool does the part with a referee, and I do the part without one. One more thing, and it's the one where the machine encoded something I've been doing by eye for weeks without ever putting it into words. When I cut audio by hand, I don't just chop it anywhere. I let the wave form. I try to land the cut where the line is settled rather than in the middle of it. Here's why. Sound is a wave moving above and below a middle line, and every time I shorten a pause, I'm making a cut. I'm taking a chunk out of the middle of that pause and joining the two ends back together, making it shorter. If I cut in the middle of the curve, the wave has to jump instantly from one height to another when those ends meet. That vertical jump is a click. It's not a glitch in the software. That's just what a step in the waveform sounds like. So the fix is to make every cut land where the wave crosses the middle line. Both ends are sitting at the same height, they meet cleanly, and there's no step to hear. The tool hunts for that crossing point automatically, within a few thousandths of a second of wherever the cut was going to land. Then it checks its own work. It measures the size of the step at every single join and reports it. That's the referee. No model, no ear, no judgment. Just arithmetic confirming the joins are clean every single time it runs. So the finished thing does four jobs in order. It measures my rhythm from the tape. It finds every gap. It silences the inside of each one completely because whatever's in there, a breath, a swallow, a click, none of it is speech, so it doesn't need to be there. Then it cuts each pause down to a multiple of my own natural gap and snaps every join to the zero line. And here's the thing I did not expect. The best part of my new AI crew has no AI in it. The gaps, the breath, the pacing, the seams, that's all arithmetic on a waveform. The only model in the whole pipeline is the transcription. And the one job I hired an actual language model for is the one job I gave up on. That's not disappointment. That's the Arrow's rule doing exactly what it said it would. The parts with a cheap referee got automated. The parts without one didn't. An hour and 22 minutes. That was before. I just ran this tape through the tool, then listened once, and cleaned up what it missed. A few mouse clicks it couldn't have known about, and a couple breaths in the middle of sentences. It took 15 and a half minutes. I listened through an 8-minute audio, with the remaining time making a few adjustments and a few passes to catch what it missed. And if that sounds like a consolation prize, a machine that gets you most of the way and hands you the rest, I'd push back on that. That's not a failed automation. That's what improving a workflow actually looks like. The machine took hundreds of identical motions. I kept the handful of decisions. Nobody was ever going to automate the decisions because the decisions are the job. Oh, by the way, everything you've been listening to for the last 8 minutes or so, every pause, every gap, every breath that isn't there, was cut by the tool I just described. You've been listening to the receipt the whole time. Era 2, Round 1. See you in the next one.